support for and solidarity with your struggles, your demands, and your efforts at negotiating reasonable and fair outcomes. The only point that needs to be reiterated here is that pension, as the Supreme Court has ruled, is not a bounty, but an entitlement. It's a right, and it's also considered a deferred wage. And this judgment of the 5-member Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court in DS Nakara and others versus Union in India, 1982, still holds, but it's being blatant. The spirit of it, and often the letter also, they are being blatantly violated. And the judgment, as we know, firmly established that discrimination based solely on the date of retirement violates Article 14, the fundamental right to equality, which is part of our vital part of our Constitution. And because that judgment reinforced the idea that equals should be treated equally. So pension is an entitlement, it's a right, it's not a bounty, it's not charity, it's a deferred wage, and it has to be seen that way, and the struggles are to be based on this premise, the central premise, which the Supreme Court has reiterated in this constitutional bench of the Supreme Court has reiterated in this 1982 judgment. Having said that, let me move on to the broader political landscape, political and economic landscape. The last several years have seen a growing conflict between the forces of what can be labeled the Hindutva corporate regime, represented by the BJP government at the center, that on the one side, the forces of the Hindutva corporate regime, and on the other, the secular democratic forces opposed to this regime and opposed to this push. The push is to impose a reactionary Hindutva agenda and an authoritarian drive to suppress all opposition, all serious dissenting voices, and all democracy. And in doing this, it displays its fangs, its neo-fascist. And I think it's vital, if you are to protect the Constitution, the legacy of the freedom struggle, the victories won by the working class over a long period through protracted battles that have involved a lot of sacrifices, a lot of losses also on the side of the working class and democratic movements in this country. And this goes on. The Lok Sabha election of 2024, although it returned the BJP to power, it did not return the BJP to power as a party with a majority. Everybody knows this. The outcome was a serious setback for the BJP because it lost its majority in the Lok Sabha. And also on the other side, the BJP or the ruling party or the ruling coalition faces a strengthened opposition in parliament. But we cannot be complacent about this because we have also seen that the third term of the Modi-led BJP government has seen a continuation, perhaps in a more intensive way, of the Hindutva neoliberal agenda of the BJP and the RSS. And although it's a tough period, a difficult period, these results have opened up space for wider resistance to the pro-corporate Hindutva policies of this government, opened up space for resistance within and outside Parliament. We've also seen on the foreign policy front that the BJP government has reinforced its strategic ties with the United States, although that has run into some difficulties with Donald Trump being elected president. Contrary to what was expected, the Modi government has faced some difficulties in the shape of tariffs and other serious differences. Nevertheless, the government is a subservient partner in this strategic relationship with the United States, and we cannot take our eyes off that, because although Prime Minister Modi resisted some pressure to completely break away from the Russian Federation, it has been made clear that the relationship between Russia and India is an all-weather relationship, and whichever government is in power, it cannot afford to weaken this relationship, because it is strategic in terms of defense, oil, oil dependence on crude oil, and so on, and various other aspects. Because Russia has, and formerly and before that the Soviet Union, before its breakup, showed that it is certainly the most dependable big power friend of India, whoever is in power at the helm of affairs in Russia. But India, it started with the Manmohan Singh government. We cannot forget that. It started, in fact, earlier, also with Congress governments and during coalitions. The strategic alignment with the United States, alignment with US geopolitical interests in the Asia-Pacific region, participation in the Quad, and worst of all, under this government, the shameful support for Israel's genocidal war on Gaza and on all Palestinians, as well as others who fight against against Zionism and militant Zionism and Israel's outrageous and lawless behavior. So all this, it's important to see the global context and geopolitical relations, which have a major influence or bearing on our domestic situation, on the national situation. So I think that is the overall picture. And as part of that, the loss of majority didn't mean that the government would become more cautious, that is union government, the BJP government. It has become more aggressive, in fact, trying to make up for its loss of numbers, for its dependence on other allies like the TDP and also the JDU, trying state-sponsored activities. We saw the inauguration of the Ram Temple in Ayodhya in January 2024, where the Prime Minister himself acted as High Priest. The adoption of a uniform civil code by the Uttarakhand BJP state government, passing of various laws in the BJP-ruled states targeting Muslim minorities. For example, the prohibition of interfaith marriages, the proposed Waqf Amendment Bill in Parliament, and constant and recurrent instances of violence against Muslim minorities using religious festival processions and claims over mosques, trying to create this big division, trying to rally the so-called Hindu majority against an imagined enemy. That's clearly part of the RSS agenda, and the BJP has acted on it. And the aim or the goal is to create a permanent communal divide, which will then deliver results, electoral and other political results, for those in power at the center and in several states. They want to, through this permanent divide, communal divide, they want to create an overarching Hindu identity already they have succeeded to some extent, bringing in marginalized sections of society, like the scheduled castes and even scheduled tribes, to a significant extent. This may not be a permanent gain for them, but we cannot be complacent about this mission at a time when the RSS is going to celebrate its centenary, be 100 years old very soon. But it is not just this aspect that we need to study and take seriously. It's also the neoliberal agenda, the economic policies pursued by the BJP government, primarily aimed at facilitating the transfer of resources and assets to big business, big capitalists. And you also see that apart from this general policy, a chosen group of big companies has reaped super profits through infrastructure and energy projects. Infrastructure like ports and energy projects. And these policies have led to sluggish growth, rising inequalities, unemployment, and inflation. And since there has been resistance, we saw that during the farmers' protests, and they won a significant victory, although after suffering some casualties, brutal repression during different points of that struggle. But the resilience and the courage and the intelligence, the resourcefulness shown by the leaders and activists of the farmers' struggles against the three bills that had to be withdrawn, three farm laws that had to be withdrawn, not bills, laws, I think that is inspiring. That sets a good example. But the attacks continue, the attacks on democracy and democratic rights of citizens. We have seen the blatant use of the central agencies to file cases and imprison opposition leaders. When they cannot imprison them, they file cases. They use the CBI, the Enforcement Directorate, the Income Tax Department, and also in several state police to attack the democratic rights of citizens, and especially to imprison those who are formidable opponents, opposition leaders. And they've used the Draconian Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAPA, and the Stringent Prevention of Money Laundering Act, PMLA. Independent media and journalists have been targeted. And in Parliament, very little serious debate is allowed. And decisions are taken without following parliamentary conventions. And I think this is a very serious matter. Let me give examples of the strikes, other examples of the strikes against democracy and secularism. A core concern is the way the government has brought executive power to bear on the independence of two constitutionally empowered institutions, Commission of India, and the other is the highest judiciary, notably the Supreme Court of India, which in the assessment of some lawyers and jurist critics has been turned largely into an executive court. You saw the controversy that a very shocking decision by Justice Swaminathan of the Madurai bench of the Madras High Court gave on a burning matter, and at least symbolically, whether it succeeds or not, it's good. It's good that an effort is made to impeach his judge. I don't think they have the numbers to succeed, but it will showcase the issues. The issue that I'm referring to, the attack on this. They are also trying to pack the judiciary, bringing in those they think are congenial, their opinions, some of them with an RSS background, But where the judiciary shows independence, the higher judiciary, they try to bypass the decisions of the judiciary, make it difficult for them, for example, on transfer of judges. We saw the case of Justice Muralidhar, one of the finest judges, High Court judges, a former Chief Justice of a High Court, that he was going to be transferred to the Madras High Court, but they delayed it so much that it defeated the purpose and he retired. And there are other cases like that where judges show independence, they show courage, they show a wise attitude toward and loyalty to the Constitution and the rule of law. The government makes it very difficult for them to prevail on major issues. The government has also, the union government as well as several state governments, not all of them BJP, because we see problems in West Bengal and elsewhere. They have conducted targeted assaults on freedom of expression, media freedom and independence, and other fundamental rights. The BJP union government has used anti-terror sedition, by another name now, and other draconian laws to incarcerate without bail or trial and for prolonged periods journalists, students, human rights defenders, civil society activists, and troublesome critics of the government. And we witnessed a continuous downslide after 2014 in media freedom and independence has seen India sink from the rank of 140 in 2014 to 151 in 2023 among 180 countries and territories in the World Press Freedom Index published by Reporters Without Borders. Journalists have also been murdered, not all of them by, can't blame just one political party, but the lack of protection for journalists, several being murdered in connection with their work, I think is very disturbing. The BJP regime deployed brutal force to suppress democratic protests, notably the December 2019 mass protests against a change in the citizenship law discriminating against Muslims. And the prolonged and eventually, I've already mentioned, the agitation of 2020-21 demanding the repeal of 3 farm laws, because they were opposed because they were seen as favoring corporate India at the expense of farmers. The government has systematically misused, I've said, agencies of state, countering crime, corruption, income tax violations, and money laundering. These agencies responsible for countering that have been misused against opponents, including ministers, chief ministers, and legislators belonging to opposition parties. You will rarely see any BJP legislator or minister or leader being targeted by any of these agencies. And if they are, very often they get away in court. This is not all. The government has made a concerted effort to police and censor the internet, the social media, technology platforms that deliver, a lot about this, that deliver streamed content via internet-connected devices known as OTT platforms, and against digital news providers. This creeping censorship over online content has come through various rules and now laws, guidelines and digital media ethics rules 2021. These rules were amended in 2022-23, and more recently the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, and so on. Some of these have gone to standing committees, special committees for study, but there is continuous push. The government has almost certainly conducted illegal surveillance against a large number of journalists, politicians, civil society activists, and other selected targets by deploying NSO groups, military-grade spyware, Pegasus. And this matter, I'm a petitioner in the Supreme Court on this, This is still pending before the Supreme Court of India. And then you have other serious issues. The latest attack coming by the shocking move to replace MGN-Rega by something which should be of interest. I think you'll be interested in this, and I'm sure you'll study this matter closely because there are certain parallels with pensioners' rights as well on issues of rights. The Vikshit Bharat Guarantee for Rozgar and Ajivika Mission, now called VBG Ramji Bill 2025. It seeks to replace the two decades old Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. And the opposition has rightly protested in Parliament, and they will continue to protest elsewhere, outside Parliament as well. And the minister, the Union Rural Development Minister, Shivraj Singh Chaudhary, made a mockery of parliamentary debates when he claimed that this bill is in line with Gandhiji's sentiments and is meant to establish Ram Rajya. This bill he ridiculed it. It weakens the employment rights of the poor. The claim is that it's against the Constitution. It is said to be supply driven, changing from the demand driven architecture of MGN-Rega and replacing it with a pre-decided budget. This has been pointed out by leading MPs belonging to the opposition. It also involves centralization. And very, very seriously, it lays a greater burden on states whose finances on the whole are already very fragile. This started before the BJP government came into power. There were some counter moves, but state finances have gone into a crisis in many states. There are some states with surplus budgets and so on, like Odisha. But other than that, states have come under tremendous financial stress. And when a state like Tamil Nadu or Kerala or Karnataka wants to undertake or launch an ambitious welfare scheme or a scheme involving the implementation of promises made to employees and workers, then I think it becomes very, very difficult for them to fulfill those promises, especially financial promises. So the center's most shocking is that if this bill gets through, the center's share of funding will come down from 90% to 60%. And it would very badly hit state finances if this rural employment guarantee scheme is going to have any kind of future. So as Rahul Gandhi correctly pointed out in the debate, the BJP leaders have consistently and always opposed Mahatma Gandhi's ideas, and they have sought to weaken this rural employment guarantee scheme from coming to power, after coming to power, even though they've lost the majority. It remains to be seen how the allies will react, because they will also be affected. For example, the TDP Chief Minister, Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister, Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu, or Nitish Kumar in Bihar. And as Rahul Gandhi has pointed out, and I quote, Modi ji has a deep hatred for two things: the ideas of Mahatma Gandhi and the rights of the poor, which is why we characterize this as a Hindutva corporate regime is not just fulfilling the demands of the Hindu right or the RSS. It is highly pro-big business in this respect, consistently so. And this is something that needs serious attention. The other aspect that has to be taken seriously is the unitary drive of the center. It's intensifying, and with this, if this bill becomes law and is implemented, then I think it'll be a further stage in the intensification of this unitary drive. Assault on state rights, denial of resources, especially to opposition ruled states. But here it will be difficult for them to discriminate between a state ruled by the BJP and a state ruled by the opposition. It may land them in some difficulties. And then you have outrageous governors, who interfere in the affairs of state governments. We have one governor like that in Tamil Nadu, Mr. Ravi. We have the governor of Kerala, Karnataka. They are outrageous. Whereas in BJP ruled states, the governor is invariably a friend of the ruling party and the chief minister. And this kind of blatant discrimination using this, of course, in all fairness, I must point out that when the Congress was in power, the office of the governor was also misused, often to facilitate the dismissal of elected state governments. We saw that in Kerala. First time it was misused to dismiss the government of Comrade EMS Nambudripad. And we've seen it in Tamil Nadu as well. The DMK government of Mr. Karunanidhi dismissed twice under, technically the second dismissal came under Mr. Chandrasekhar's prime ministership, but it was Congress that really pushed for it. And the first one, of course, during the emergency. So we've had this consistent misuse of the office of governor. There have been some good governors, like Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma. But right now, every governor is seen as a tool to work against the opposition, to facilitate this agenda. The agenda being the permanent division of society and the building of an overarching Hindu majority, which will then impose its vision, which is against the Constitution of India. They never made it, it was no secret that they were unhappy with the Constitution, the RSS. Sometimes they paid lip service to the Constitution. But everybody knew that they were not happy with the Constitution, and whether it was getting rid of this state status of Jammu and Kashmir, or trying to undermine institutions which are guaranteed by the Constitution, whose independence is guaranteed by the Constitution. I think it's always been a problem. And they keep pushing. Sometimes they'll retreat, then come back, one step back, and then they try to push again. So this is playing for the long run. Let there be no hesitation about this. But there are also positive factors in the political situation. States where the BJP is trying hard to gain a foothold, a base, but it's failing repeatedly. Maybe the share of the vote is going up, because if you contest everywhere and use resources the way the BJP is using resources, you will gain something. But it doesn't translate into seats, and it doesn't translate into anything that is viable in those states. And we see a similar situation in Tamil Nadu as well as in Kerala. Now, looking at the overall national political situation, if you look at the data we got in the 2024 Lok Sabha election, as against the background of other indications, other data, you come to analytical insights. If you look at different regions of India, the West Central Belt is the BJP's and the NDA's powerhouse. Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh have taken the NDA's vote share above 54%. This region, the West Central region, is the backbone of the BJP's and the NDA's national vote strength. The South is decisively anti-NDA. Of course, Karnataka, they have a major base, but South as a whole, the southern states and the union territories together, if you look at them, the NDA's voting strength, as seen in the last Lok Sabha election, is 33%. It's its weakest national bloc or regional bloc. And the India regional parties command nearly 57%, led by Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Andhra Pradesh also. The North is now a nearly balanced battleground. That's the good news, that from being heavily pro-BJP and NDA, it is now more neatly balanced, and the NDA commands roughly 45%, India regional 49%. And UP is really good news, as you saw in the last Lok Sabha election, where the opposition actually outperformed in a state that the BJP has been ruling for a long time. It outperformed the NDA and the BJP. The East and Northeast is very mixed, but slightly NDA leading. It's strong in Odisha, Bihar, and Assam. Weak in West Bengal. The national average is NDA average is pulled down. So this suggests that it is contested territory. Of course, not all opposition governments favor workers or democracy and so on, but on the whole, you can rely on the opposition, states ruled by the opposition, compared with the states ruled by the BJP, although there are internal problems, as you see, West Bengal and so on. So I think we should not get dejected looking at this powerful machinery. They go for all-out power. The idea is to capture power. And they will do anything to capture power to implement their agenda, which is the RSS's agenda. And I think in this context, the working class movement, it's important to take up the economic demands, the demands of the particular section. It could be a very large section. These demands are very important. Study the situation, put forward concrete demands that are reasonable, that are just, and also negotiate in a realistic way. You can't win everything at one go, so negotiation involves that, but a consistent focus on winning the rights of workers, employees, middle-class employees and others, I think is the way to go. But it cannot be mere economism. That is why this movement, the AIBDPA, as a militant organization or association, although concerned just with pensioners and their rights, has taken up larger issues, including Gaza, including the fight against the labor codes, including fight against communalism, and fight for secularism, for the constitution. I think we have to see it and also be attentive to what is happening on the international stage, India's external policy, and also other aspects of international relations today. So I think this is a good agenda to take up. And again, I compliment the delegates, the special guests, the observers, and others who are attending the 5th Triennial All India Conference, and especially this open session. I wish your conference success, productive discussions, good ideas emerging from this, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.